Hello guys, welcome to my channel. So today I'll be showing you how to make an off-shoulder blouse. So to start with, you need to know the length and the width you'll be working with. So to determine the width you'll be working with, you fold with the biggest circumference. So quarter of your biggest circumference plus 5 inches. So guys, since this is an off-shoulder blouse, which means no shoulder, so we need to determine how off we want our blouse to be. So you could work with 4 inches, 5 or 6, go beyond 6 inches. So I'll be working with 4 inches off. Of my blouse is 24 inches. So since I'm taking 4 inches off, I'll be left with 20 inches. Next, we're going to impute our vertical measurement. I'll place my tape and mark 4 inches off. My chest line 8 inches. My bust point 10 inches. My under bust 13.5 inches. My waist is 16 inches. And my blouse length 24 inches. Next, I'll connect with a straight line. Next, I'll go ahead to label. So this is going to be our neckline. This is going to be our chest line. This is the bust point, the under bust, the waist, and the hip. So we'll be taking all our measurements from here. So this is the 4 inches off. So I'm going to mark this. Next, I'm going to impute the bust span measurement divided by 2, which is also known as the nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. So mine is 7 inches divided by 2, which is 3.5 inches. So I'll add ½ inch to it for the same allowance. So at this neckline, I'm going to mark 4 inches. So I'll mark 4 inches all the way to this hip line. So the next thing I will do is to connect the markings with a line. So next, we're going to impute the dart for the bustier. So before we do that, at the hip, we're going to come up by 2 inches. And at the bust point, I'll be coming down by ½ inch. So this is ½ inch here. So I'll be taking 1 inch dart on both sides of the under bust and both sides of the waist. I'll mark 1 inch this way, 1 inch here, and on the waistline I'll mark 1 inch here and 1 inch here also. So I'm going to connect from here with a straight line, and I'll connect it to this marking here. So I'll connect from the under bust to the waist, and from the waist all the way down here. I'll do same thing here to this marking. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to use my curve to connect from this under bust to this marking here below the bust point. The reason I came down by ½ inch is to reduce friction or pointiness at the bust point. So I'll place my curve like this. So my curve is touching this point and meeting this point. So I'll connect like this. I'll place my curve like this and also connect from here to here. So I'm also going to place my darts at the neckline here. So before I do that, at this bust point, I'll also come up by ½ inch. And at this point, I'll be taking ½ inch at this side and 1 inch on this side. Then I'll connect to this point. So from here all the way down. So the next thing I'm going to do is to impute the horizontal measurement. So on this chest line, I'm going to impute quarter of my bust circumference. So I have 10 inches. Then I'm going to measure what I have here. I have 3/4 inch. So I'll add it to the 10 inches. So that will be 10 3/4. So I had to replace this dart because I'll be cutting it off. Then I'm going to add 2 inches seam allowance. Quarter of my under bust circumference is 8.5, and I'm going to replace these 2 inches here that will be 10.5. So I'm going to mark 10.5 here, plus 2 inches seam allowance. And on the waist, quarter of my waist circumference is 8 3/4 plus this 2 inches dart. So that will be 10 3/4. So I'm going to add 2 inches seam allowance. Then on the hip line, quarter of my hip measurement is 11 inches plus 2 inches seam allowance. So the next thing I'll do is to connect these markings together. So on this neckline, for an off shoulder, you get half of your shoulder measurement. So my shoulder measurement is 14 inches and half of it is 7 inches. So I'll subtract 1.5 inches and I'll be left with 5.5 inches. So I'm going to impute 5.5 inches here. This is 5.5 inches. Then I'm also going to replace this dart. So I have ½ inch here and I have 1 inch here. That is 1.5 inches. So I'll place 1.5 inches here. Then I'll also add 1 inch seam allowance. ½ inch will be used to join this piece to this piece, and the other ½ inch will be used to join it to the sleeve. So the next thing I'm going to do is connect from this point with this point. So I'm going to use my French cuff to do that. So I'll connect from here just like this. So please ignore this part, it was a mistake. So this is our armhole. On the neckline, you could choose to leave the neck like this, or you can do a sweetheart, something like this. So you can determine any type of neckline you want to use. So I'll be going with an oval shape. So at this point, I'll come down by 1.5 inches and I'll connect from this point to this point with my curve. So this is my neckline. So at the blouse length here, I added a 1 inch hemming allowance. So I'll come in here by 3 inches just to give my blouse a curvy shape. If I had left it just straight like this, after joining, I'll be having a pointy, funny look in here. So guys, we're done with the front. So the next thing I'm going to do is to cut this out. So guys, this is what I have for the front piece after cutting. So the next thing I'll do is to move over to the back piece. So guys, this is for the back piece. I went ahead to impute the vertical measurement. So I have 4 inches off here. So this is going to serve as the neckline. This is going to be the chest line. This is the bust point, the waist, my blouse length, and I have a 1 inch hemming allowance, just like we did for the front. And I also have a zipper allowance of 1 inch here. So I'll be taking all my measurements from this line this way, not on the zipper allowance. Next, I'm going to impute the bust part measurement, which is also known as the nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. So like I did for the front, I'm going to make use of 4 inches. So at this neckline, I'll impute 4 inches all the way to this hemline. I'll be starting from this line here and not from here. 4 inches here also. Then I'll connect to the straight line. The next thing I'm going to do is to impute the dart. So I'm going to take ½ inch on this side, ½ inch here, and I'll come up on the bust point by 1 inch and I'll connect to the waist dart. And on the hip line, I'll be coming up by 2 inches. So I'm going to connect from here to the waist and to this point. Next, I'm going to impute the horizontal measurement. So on this chest line, I'm going to impute quarter of my bust circumference. That's 10 inches. So I'm going to mark 10 inches here, plus 2 inches seam allowance. Then on the waist, quarter of my waist circumference is 8 3/4. Then I'm going to also replace this half inch, which is 1 inch, that allowance. That will give me 9 3/4. I'll place 9 3/4 plus 2 inches seam allowance. Then at this hemline, I'll place quarter of my hip circumference. That will give me 11 inches. So I'm starting from this line. So I place 11 inches here plus 2 inches seam allowance. So the next thing I will do is to connect these markings. So on the neckline, I'm going to place 5.5 inches like I did for the front. So you can see I'm starting my measurement from this line this way. So I have 5.5 inches here. Then I'll also add ½ inch seam allowance to join to the sleeve. So that will make it 6 inches. So the next thing I will do is to connect from this point all the way to this chest line. So guys, for the neckline, you could choose to leave it like this, or you impute any desired shape you want. But for me, I'll be coming down by 2.5 inches here. So I'll connect from here, way here. So guys, please note, on this dart line, I wouldn't be cutting out. I'll be sewing my darts directly on my fabric. But if you want to cut out, you could go ahead to cut out the dart. If you're going to be cutting out your darts, you need to add an allowance on this neckline before you connect to the chest line, so you wouldn't have a shortage on your neckline. On this hemline, I'm going to come in by 3 inches and connect. So guys, we're done with the back piece. So this is going to go off. So guys, this is how the back pattern looks like after cutting out. So at the zipper allowance, you'll be slitting into 2. So you're meant to have 2 pieces for the back piece. So let's cut the sleeve. So for the sleeve, my paper is on fold. And how did I get the width? I folded with half of my armhole circumference plus 2 inches. So half of my armhole is 9 inches plus 2 inches. So I have 11 inches here. And for the length, I'm working with 10 inches plus 1 inch seam allowance. So I have 11 by 11 inches. Next, I'll impute my sleeve cap height, which is 4 inches. And the formula to get this is your bust circumference divided by 12 plus 0.5 inches. So I'm going to impute 4 inches here. And I'll connect with a straight line. On this line, I'm going to impute half of my armhole circumference, which is 9 inches, plus 1 inch seam allowance. Then on this line, I'm going to impute my sleeve opening or my round sleeve. Mine is 13 inches divided by 2 because my paper is on fold. So that's 6.5 inches plus 1 inch seam allowance. So I'm going to connect this point to this point. So for this point, I need to do some calculation. I'm going to need my round shoulder measurement and also my upper bust circumference or upper chest circumference. So my round shoulder circumference is 44 inches and my upper chest circumference is 36 inches. So I'm going to subtract 36 inches from 44 inches. That will give me 8 inches. So from this calculation, each sleeve is going to be 8 inches. So because my paper is on fold, I'm going to divide it by 2. So I'm going to impute 4 inches here plus ½ inch seam allowance to join to the blouse. So I'm going to connect from this point to this point. So the next thing I'm going to do is to cut out. But before I do that, I'm going to fold this 1 inch in just like this. I'll trace this line. So this is our off shoulder sleeve. So you need to cut one more for both sleeves. So guys, we've come to the end of this tutorial. So if this tutorial was helpful, please like, share and subscribe.